Hello, I'm Dominic Walker. Welcome to JMW's Inside Man YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and keep the conversation going in the comments section. Now, a case has just come before the courts called Wright and McCormack. Rebecca Young is a partner within JMW's media law team, and Sam Ballin is a solicitor within JMW's digital assets team. So Sam, if I can turn to you first of all and just ask you, what's Bitcoin and what has happened in this case?
Yeah, so Bitcoin is today's most well-known cryptocurrency. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of what Bitcoin is. And cryptocurrency is a digital payment system that doesn't rely on banks or any centralized authority to verify transactions. So it's just simply a peer-to-peer system that can enable anyone, anywhere to send and receive payments. So instead of being physical money or fiat currency, which is carried around and exchanged in the real world, cryptocurrency payments exist purely as digital entries to an online database describing specific transactions. So when you transfer cryptocurrency funds, the transactions are recorded in a public ledger, which we all know as the blockchain, and that cryptocurrency itself is stored in digital online wallets. In terms of Bitcoin, that was created on the back of the financial crisis of 2008. It was created in 2009, and along with cryptocurrency generally, it was created as a way of people engaging in financial transactions without having to rely on governments or banks. In terms of what this case is about, so this is a case for libel in respect of publications which were tweeted by the defendant, Mr. McCormack, about the claimant, Dr. Wright. Namely, that Dr. Wright isn't the person he claims to be behind the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto, and that he did not, in fact, invent Bitcoin. So whilst Mr. McCormack initially pleaded the defence that his publications were true, he subsequently abandoned that as he simply couldn't fund the costs of a lengthy trial that would entail. So the identity of Satoshi is not an issue the courts determined in this case. The issues that were determined, which Rebecca is going to go into more detail about, were actually the meaning behind the publications, the liability, and whether those publications caused serious harm to the reputation of Dr. Wright, and if so, what the appropriate relief would be.
Does this mean that in addition to defamation being in the written form, it could exist in a broadcast and in this case, YouTube?
Hi, Dom. Yes, it can. And an increase in the use of social media, such as platforms like Twitter or Instagram and YouTube, have seen an increase in complaints. And often we read about claims in defamation in the media that relate to these different social media platforms. For instance, the high-profile claims of Rachel Riley or the recent Rebecca Vardy and Colleen Rooney case that related to a single post on Instagram. Here, the complaint related to 15 tweets and one YouTube video, which lasted over a period of about 3 hours and discussed a wide variety of issues, only one of which was the identity of Satoshi. And it was a discussion between a number of people expressing a number of different views, including that Dr. Wright is Satoshi.
So was Dr. Wright penalised for false evidence?
Dr. Wright made a number of allegations of specific instances that he said he could point to as showing that he had suffered serious harm. These included events that he had been invited to speak at and present academic papers outside of England and Wales, so outside of the jurisdiction, and where those invitations were withdrawn. Also included patents that he had filed being devalued and allegations that he had been forced to abandon an application to be appointed as a magistrate. Now, as the case progressed towards trial, he amended his pleading so that he no longer relied upon the withdrawal of the conference invitations. And despite having withdrawn this aspect of his claim days before trial, the abandoning of the serious harm case and the evidence that he had given, oral evidence that he'd given whilst at trial, were carefully considered by the judge. And the judge concluded that the original case on serious harm and the evidence supporting that was deliberately false, and that the explanation that Dr. Wright had given on why he'd abandoned this part of the case, being that he decided to confine his case to serious harm arising from events that he had been disinvited to from within the jurisdiction, that simply did not withstand scrutiny in circumstances where that had been his case for a number of months prior.
Now, Rebecca, I noticed you mentioned serious harm. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? And also, why was £1 in damages awarded?
Yes, Dom. So an interesting feature in this judgment is the judge's findings on serious harm. The judge found that it was more likely than not that the publications each caused serious harm to Dr. Wright's reputation. Noticeably, Mr. McCormack's not not the only person to publish these allegations. The judge commented that a number of the tweets form the basis of an online conversation between Mr. McCormack and an associate or public supporter of Dr. Wright, and that it could be said that that person was goading Mr. McCormack so as to generate a basis for a defamation claim. But the judge stated that the law as it stands provides that a person who publishes a defamatory statement is liable if it can be shown that the publication has caused or is likely to cause serious harm, even if that publication was in response to goading. The judge also pointed out here that the publications may have been flippant in tone, but came from a well-known podcaster, somebody that was recognised as an expert in cryptocurrency, and where Mr. McCormack was willing to express his views very clearly and firmly as to his belief that Dr. Wright is not Satoshi. The judge also considered the reach of the publications, and both parties submitted figures of the number of readers in this jurisdiction.
How can JMW's digital assets team and JMW's media team help?
Yeah, so JMW's digital assets team can assist clients in a variety of ways. We're currently one of the only firms in the country instructed on a high-value crypto fraud matter. We can assist in tracing cryptocurrency along the blockchain in order to attempt to recover it. And we also have a specialist team of lawyers like Rebecca who deal with defamation and IP issues as well. And that includes matters surrounding cryptocurrencies and non-fungible tokens.
Rebecca and Sam, thank you so much for your insight. And if you'd like to speak to Rebecca and Sam, you can email insideman@jmw.co.uk or call 0161 82 81 999. I'm Dominic Walker, JMW's Inside Man.